Hey folks, Dr. Gerstmar from Aspire Natural Health. Got the kids off to bed and realized I need to check in for today, so here I am on day 10 of the 21-day Paleo Cleanse. So a busy and relaxing day today. I took my son, we had a date day today. We went and saw Kubo and the Two Strings at the theater. Good movie, recommend watching it if you check out the preview and think it looks interesting. We both really enjoyed it. So I ended up shifting my meal today to that lunchtime meal to have a meal with him, and then had my other shake for dinner. So again, shake for breakfast, meal for lunch, and shake for dinner. So you do have some flexibility where to put that meal, and you can put it so that you can have, so it's most convenient and best for social time and time with the family, everything else, all right? As far as what's going on for me, it's all good, really no complaints, and I'm honestly, in my crazy way, pondering whether I want to try and take this thing up a notch. Speaking of taking it up a notch, let's talk about fasting. So when we talk about a protocol like this, we sometimes talk about how it's kind of modified fasting, and there's a long tradition of fasting in the medical literature and back. Looks like we timed out there for a second, and especially in the alternative literature, if we go back to Hippocrates, the old Greek guy from thousands of years ago, considered the father of medicine, he talks quite a bit about fasting. So what is fasting? Fasting is going to be the avoidance of food, and when we talk about fasting, there are a whole bunch of different protocols, and sometime if people are interested, we could talk about some of them, but essentially we can boil it down into two categories. One is the fasting-like protocols, which are eating a very low number of calories a day. So it might be some light snacking throughout the day, never actually eating a meal, and never getting the calories, much above just a very light level. Or true fasting, which is avoiding all food entirely. Now, fasting can work extremely well, and if you look back kind of through the literature, especially in my profession, the naturopathic profession, you look back 100 years or more and see what a lot of the nature cure doctors were doing, fasting played a big part, and, from their reports, helped a lot of people with a lot of different illnesses. And partly that's because fasting shuts the body down and puts it into a repair and survival protocol, which has a lot of tremendous benefits. It's been shown to be helpful in cancer. It's been shown to have some benefits in autoimmune disease and some other allergies and basically anything with immunity, because it serves as an immune reset. It gets rid of a lot of dead weight on the system and kind of repreps it. Now, fasting done for a long time is really draining on the system, and one of the things we have to talk about is that a lot of people come to me, at least, in a very depleted condition. Maybe their digestion hasn't been working well for quite a long time. They've been dragged down by chronic illness. They're just in kind of a weak and depleted state. And honestly, I don't recommend fasting for them, because fasting is a stressful and depleting experience. Now, the other thing we have to talk about is that the world is a different place than it was 100 or 150 years ago. We've talked before about how there is a toxic load, a body burden that didn't exist in people 100, 150 years ago that does now. And many of us are living on substandard food, right? Calorie-rich, nutrient-poor food, so we come into this situation with a heavy toxic burden and low nutrient stores in our body. We go to fast, which can be beneficial in the sense it switches our body over into that survival and rebuilding mode. But if we're low on nutrients and then we're mobilizing a lot of this body burden, a lot of this toxicity, it can overwhelm the system and make us sick. So for many people, I don't recommend fasting for that very reason. Now, if you're strong and you're vital and you're in good shape and you don't have any reason to think that you have a heavy body burden and the idea of fasting sounds good to you, then let her rip. Fast lasts anywhere, most commonly from about 3 to 7 days. They can go out much longer, of course, but when we get beyond about 7 days, it's really good to have some medical supervision, make sure everything's going well and you're not getting yourself into trouble. Okay. Now, we talked about fasting and how it can work. The other side, how It can work, and how I don't recommend it often for people, especially if you're depleted, digestion's not working well, or we just have reason to think that your nutritional state is not very good. The other side, of course, is the psychological. Not eating is challenging for a lot of people. We've talked about hunger in past episodes here, but it is, an even more serious issue when we're not eating food at all. Now, some people are ready, willing, and able to tackle that. Obviously, it totally can be done, but it can be challenging for people. And if you're not feeling up to that challenge, then I don't recommend it. And the third piece is that if you look back where fasting is used, it is not just the avoidance of food. It's usually a whole life fast in general. So traditionally, people were taken to sanitariums, and again, most people think of that term as insane asylums, but sanitation, or sanus, is from the Latin for health, and a sanitarium was like a retreat that you would go away to. Think like a vacation where you go to an all-inclusive spa, right? And you're relaxing, and everything is light and easy, and maybe you're getting massages and other therapies. Well, similar things would happen. You wouldn't just go off food and continue running through your daily life. You'd actually take a break, whether it was 3 days or 7 days or 14 days. You'd go to a sanitarium, and obviously you wouldn't have a job, you wouldn't have children, you wouldn't have responsibilities. Your goal would just be to relax, recover, and get healthy again. You'd be having baths and other hydro or water therapies. You'd be having massages. You'd be having some therapeutic exercise. And as part of that, you'd be fasting as well. So what I don't recommend is that people stop eating but continue powering through their day-to-day life with high levels of stress and maybe poor sleep and not enough time to exercise or over-exercising. Just stopping eating and not doing any of these other things isn't going to get you the same benefits. So fasting, let's bring this all together. Can it be tremendously helpful? Absolutely it can be. Do I often recommend it to patients? I do not. And why? First of all, because a lot of people come in depleted, and they come in, not in a good place to do a fast. Because fasting can be tremendously beneficial, but again, the world has changed. We are more toxic, we are more depleted than people were 100, 150 years ago, when fasting was more regularly used by naturopaths and other alternative providers. Secondly, psychologically, it can be challenging for people. Again, we've talked earlier about how hunger and discomfort can be beneficial, but some people just aren't ready to do it. And third, fasting should really be in the context of a whole life fast, taking time off and away not just from food, but also from things like the stresses of daily life, which can include work, which can include kids, which can include all the other day-to-day stresses that we've got. Ideally, you'd be in a nice, pleasant, tranquil location. You'd be sleeping a lot. You'd be putting in good things like, motivational reading and other things, just calming, relaxing, and restorative to the body, mind, and soul, and that's how fasting can fit in. So for most people these days, I don't recommend fasting, but something like a modified fast can be tremendously helpful. The PaleoCleanse is a kind of modified fast, where instead of eating 3 meals a day, consuming 2 shakes and 1 whole foods-based meal, which is going to put you into a bit of a caloric deficit and activate some, but not all, of those fasting mechanisms. All right, folks, day 10, another one down for me. I'm in the double digits now, 10 days down, 11 days to go. Everything's going fine, and in my crazy mad scientist mind, I'm pondering whether I want to try and take this thing up another notch. All right, folks, I will check in tomorrow for day 11. Until then, take care.